You all done, Nick?
I am not Nick.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Ethan, and welcome to Fast Return.
And today we're going to be talking about Eve of the Daleks.
Happy New Year.
Hiya, Nick.
Here we are again.
Here we are again.
Ah.
Anyone else got a proper deja vu?
We're stuck in a time loop with killer robots.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Does it?
It will kill everything not within its own image.
Shoot.
I quite liked it on New Year's because it meant that there was something to look forward to after Christmas was finished.
Yeah.
And Eve is very much a special that's like a comfort special you can watch at that time of year, can't you? It's always a lot of fun.
Because we are talking about a Dalek episode today, I feel like we need to mention the fact that we brought a Paradigm Dalek to Clapham.
Mm-hmm. In a very festive red one as well.
We're going to bring a very special guest onto the stage right now to duet this song with me. Are you ready, everyone?
It was such an honour to be part of Gallifrey Cabaret again.
Went down very well.
Mm-hmm.
It was a challenge to get such a big, bulky Dalek into a van and drive it about an hour and a half from zone 6 to zone 2.
I never thought we'd ever do that, and I'm really glad that we did, because that prop used to do charity conventions and stuff with Sons of Skaro. So it had been a long time since it was in central London, and obviously it has travelled around the country as part of that charity group. To have it back on a stage now, of all places, in public, and being watched by an audience, including Russell T Davies, that's crazy.
He was fabulous that night. He kept saying, "Is this Dalek yours? Where'd you keep it?" And we were like, "It's in the front room." "How big is your front room?" And he just kept saying that.
Yeah.
There's a footage of him in the audience with his phone out taking a video, very like Kris Jenner in the Thank You Next music video.
I really hope that video is sent to Stephen Moffat so Moffat can see people still like the Paradigm Daleks. I mean, the reaction it got was great, wasn't it? And then I think it felt so right that we had a really unique sort of special Dalek there with Reese on stage and his red and sort of maroon doctorish outfit. They were such a pair, weren't they?
And we will forever be in debt to Reese and Carrot for giving us that opportunity, not once but twice. And I've said it to them both so many times, but the whole experience, just absolutely core memories that we will cherish. And after we did it the first time, we felt so lucky to be asked to be part of it in a small way.
Yeah.
And to get to do that a second time where, Russell and Camille and some of the Bad Wolf team were there watching as well. That was another experience.
Yeah, no, it was ended up being really successful, didn't it? And everyone enjoyed it. And I would 100% do it again. But I don't know how we'll top it next time with the Daleks now. Anyone who was possibly thinking maybe they'll bring the Dalek out again, no one would have thought it's going to be a Paradigm Dalek this time at Christmas.
And you're always holding your breath as well, that it'll all go smoothly. When you get into the Dalek and you wire it up, you're like, please, lights turn on. And they did. And you did an amazing job of syncing it to the audio as well. And you couldn't have gone any better, I didn't think, both times. So anyway, that leads us on to Eve of the Daleks.
Unfortunately, Paradigm Daleks aren't in this story.
No, but we will continue the campaign.
So Eve of the Daleks. So
Eve of the Daleks, yeah.
Going into this is one of the strongest Jodie Whittaker era stories for me personally. And I remember thinking at the time that on our first watch through of this, I thought, okay, this is one of the best Jodie stories they've done. And that feeling is still the same, having rewatched it now with you. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. very strong, especially for a special, like a festive special that can be quite inconsequential. It was a really good story, and it was nice to have the Daleks carrying on from when they last saw the Doctor in Flux.
Because this was the third part in what they call Chibnall's Dalek trilogy.
Yeah.
Every New Year's Day he would do a Dalek story, which I really liked actually. It's something that they've never done before in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really cool because it was sort of a continuation of these stories. The first two are more linked closely. Mm-hmm. The third one, Eve of the Daleks, is more standalone, but like you say, it's got repercussions from the Flux storyline. The three specials, I loved Eve the most. Mm-hmm. And I always forget the other two, what they're called. Is it
Revolution is the one with the two factions fighting. That's
my second favourite.
And then Resolution is the one without any mention of the Daleks being in it, because do you remember there were it was when they were trying to like keep it all under wraps and they just called it Resolution, and the Dalek wasn't even on the cover of the DVD or anything like that.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, do you remember that? All the promo posters and stuff, the Dalek wasn't in any of it. I don't even know if they changed that for any subsequent releases, but the Dalek wasn't in any of the promotional material for it at all.
There's a really good episode in that, but it's so slowed down by Ryan, the dad storyline, which takes place somewhere completely away from the main plot, and it just really rudely intercuts with the main episode. Anyway, that's story for another episode.
It's funny, like I just remember watching Resolution and thinking this is really good, but all these references to like Dalek High Command and stuff, like Daleks waiting in a saucer, I really wanted to just see that, and obviously you don't really see any of that. But then in Revolution and in Flux, you get loads of that. So those were amazing, and I do think that generally the Dalek trilogy is some of the best stuff that Chibnall ever did. They're all great fun. Anyway, yeah, sorry, go on.
Shall I give you a synopsis of the episode?
Yeah.
The Eve of the Daleks is a Doctor Who New Year's special where the Doctor, Yaz and Dan are trapped in a time loop at a self-elf storage facility with Sarah, played by Aisling Bea, and Nick, played by Ajani Salmon. Stalked by Daleks, they must outsmart their evolving foes as each reset brings them closer to midnight and death. With quick thinking and teamwork, the Doctor races to break the loop and save everyone before time runs out. I think that Aisling and Ajani make this episode. There's a good episode there on paper, but their performances really elevate it, especially Aisling's, because she is laugh a minute. The way that she delivers every line, like she is a really special guest star, and I would love to see her come back, and I like that the door is kind of open for her to come back as well. Yeah,
she's a naturally very funny character, but also a funny actress as well, playing her. Like, it's not one of these instances where they get a comedy actor in who doesn't really get to do anything or even be funny.
Cough, Joy.
Oh, bless, yeah.
Yeah,
is it how is it pronounced? Aisling? Aisling. So Aisling gets a lot to do. Obviously, she's a really significant part of the episode, but like what she gets to do is funny as well. Like she does get a lot of the laughs.
I really liked how this is kind of like a Christmas and a New Year special rolled in one.
Yeah, but it has that sort of cozy vibe, doesn't it? Like
cozy.
How she's in the office and she has like a little Christmas tree in the office and there's like baubles on the side, and it feels like, I don't know, it's got that thing that I really like in Doctor Who that you don't see all that often in New Who at the moment, but it's like you've got regular people, like working people, and it's like you can imagine being in like a work office like that with like a tiny little Christmas tree just as like a token.
Yeah.
But I love that the vibe was already in there when the episode starts with her like waiting around for their shift to end or whatever, you know.
They built this like lobby to this storage facility, and it is a really well done set, and it's such a great setting.
Set?
It's a set, yeah. That lobby was a set. The corridors.
With the lifts in the back?
Yeah, that was a set. God. And I know, yeah. It's quite like a neat episode. It all takes like kind of bottle episode.
Yeah.
It all takes place in one place, but it never feels like a bottle episode.
But I love that though. It's not too sprawling. I think there is a tendency to make Doctor Who like as sprawling as possible. It doesn't need to do that every time. And I like that this is like a small bunch of characters who are basically just facing off against a small squad of Daleks for like the whole hour. But like it's really entertaining because the characters are interesting.
And you're rooting for the characters as well. You enjoy them straight away. Yeah. And it's really funny because the actor who plays Nick, he's so endearing. I feel like you're meant to be more creeped out by the character in the first part of the episode, but he's such an endearing actor. I just thought he was really sweet the whole time. And I think she was meant to come across as quite mean, but because she's so funny, I didn't buy into that either.
He comes across as a bit weird, like keeping all this stuff from his exes, but then it's like immediately played for laughs when Yaz is like, they are alive, aren't they?
Yeah.
So it's like, and she comes across as quite mean, but to be fair, like I wouldn't react the same way as her, but you can see why she reacts like that because she's kind of like, she's a bit done with everything, isn't she, by that point? She just wants to go home.
I did feel like by this special, they really were in the swing of it in terms of like the era. But then again, Sea Devils comes after this, and we both feel like that sort of falls flat. But in this episode, I wrote
I like what it's trying to do, though. I feel like with a lot of the shortcomings of the Sea Devil one are visual things and direction related stuff rather than other stuff like that. But
in this one, like the script was really tight.
Yeah.
The sets were really tight. The music I wrote, even the music in the opening is really tight. The guest stars, everything is just woven beautifully. And the ideas in this episode, they're all explored so well. And like the sci-fi sort of concept of the time loop is really well done and easy to follow as well.
Yeah, and I really like that. It doesn't need to be complicated.
No.
It's a simple science fiction plot. And it's all the better for it, I think, honestly. It spends less time waffling. It gets pieced together as the characters learn it, so too do the audience, do you know?
So we get the setup with how the Doctor stumbles upon this storage facility, and it's the TARDIS is meant to land on like some holiday planet, but it doesn't, because the TARDIS has detected this temporal issue, this temporal disturbance, I think. But what the Doctor was intending to do was land the TARDIS and reset it, which is a really cool idea because of the flux. There's this really cool imagery in the TARDIS console room of like TARDIS doors on the floor and like black webbing, and everything is just falling apart. So the Doctor's like, let's land. I'm going to hit the reset button. I need to run out, give it a bit of time, and then when it's ready, it'll be all fresh and new. And immediately you're like, this is a really cool idea. Because I feel like it's not been done before in Doctor Who. The effect that they use, like the effect of the TARDIS like collapsing in on itself as they're running out.
Yeah, that's cool.
Incredible. But yeah, the effect was so well done of the TARDIS like collapsing in on itself and the TARDIS team like narrowly escaping.
I was a bit baffled as to why those two didn't just leave and then the Doctor leaves. Why do they all have to wait until she says, right, run? And then they all run for their lives.
It's like this TARDIS set is cursed with nobody knows what to do with the companions because they're always awkwardly stood. Even in like a setup like this where it's really obvious for the director who directed this episode beautifully. This is what I mean. Like it must be the set that's cursed. So it would make sense that they would stand near the door. They're just awkwardly stood like they always are in this set. But anyway.
To be honest with you, I think it's not anywhere near as grating as it sometimes is because the scene's so quick. Just having Dan and Yaz, not three people stood in a row, makes it feel, I don't know, just the pair of them to me work better. Yaz works best as a pair with Dan. It feels more naturalistic, do you know?
Oh, 100%.
Whereas when it was Graham, Yaz, and Ryan in a straight line repeatedly, that was more grating. I didn't really mind it in this. It's more the fact that when we're watching this, I'm aware of like some of the issues that the era is perceived to have, and so I'm looking out for that. But really, it wasn't that bad. I mean, this whole scene's over in like 5 minutes, isn't it? It's
directed by Annette Laufer. I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
She is a German-Jamaican filmmaker, and the highest of praise for her because she did such a phenomenal. I think we both agree that this is the best looking Jodie episode in terms of the direction. It's a very strong looking episode. Yeah. So Annette did a phenomenal job. The episode, like, it's very fast paced. It doesn't really stop. And when it does, unlike a lot of Chibnall episodes where things slow down, the sort of breather isn't too prolonged.
There's a couple of them in this episode, actually, but they're all done really well.
They are like...
They feel very natural.
Sarah and Nick, they have a couple of moments of quiet where they talk to each other, but there's things going on in the background, and we'll go more into that. But yeah, like you say, it's all done really well.
Every year, every New Year's Eve, Jeff. You promise me that you'll work, and then you play me for the fool that I clearly am, and then just at the last minute, when you know I have plans, you leave me high and dry, on my own, on New Year's Eve, working in a business that you know I hate, but not as much as I hate you, Jeff. And I do hate you. I wish I'd never employed you. So yeah, can you call me back when you get a chance? Thank you.
We're introduced to Sarah working on the front desk in the storage facility. Nick comes in. It's New Year's Eve. He's there to drop off some things, but it's really that he has a crush on her, and he just likes to see her and
Spend time with her. Yeah.
She doesn't want to be there. Who would want to be at work on New Year's Eve?
Yeah.
We're introduced as well to Mary, Sarah's mum.
Mammy, it's 4 minutes to midnight every year. Why you call me now?
The lines will all be busy at midnight.
No, they won't, because it's not 1973.
And she's played by the actress who played Mrs. Doyle in Father Ted, as I'm always hasten to point out.
You won't have a cup.
No, thanks, Mrs. Doyle. Honestly, I won't have a cup.
Are you sure now it's hot?
No, I'm not in the mood, thanks.
All right, so. Like, one, would you not have a drop?
No, thanks anyway,
Just a
Mrs.
little
Doyle.
cup.
I'm fine.
Go on.
No, really.
I'll tell you what, Father. I'll pour
Seriously?
a cup for you anyway. And you can have it if you want.
Yes, Pauline McLynn, an iconic
That one.
actress. Yeah.
Yeah.
Has she been in Doctor Who before?
I couldn't tell you.
But yeah, she was in Father Ted. The landlady in Last Night in Soho.
Oh, yeah, of course.
We watched that recently, and that's where we recognise her from.
Well, she's the pub owner, isn't she, actually? The landlady's played by Diana Rigg.
Oh, the bar landlady, I mean, sorry.
Yes. Yeah. And she ends up saving the day, actually, although by accident, clearly.
Yeah, she's so funny.
She's an old fusspot, isn't she? Bless her.
She is, yeah. Wanting to ring her daughter Sarah early, not at midnight, because she thinks the lines will be busy.
That's not how it works, Mummy.
Mammy, it's 4 minutes to midnight every year. Why you call me now?
The lines will all be busy at midnight.
No, they won't, because it's not 1973.
But she does save the day, you're right.
Yeah, because then Nick turns up and she's like, I've got to go, Mummy, I've got a customer.
At this point, Nick and Sarah both meet their first Daleks, don't they?
He goes upstairs to put his board away.
Yeah, so he goes upstairs and she's in the lobby, and then they meet a Dalek respectively, don't they?
Oh yeah, so we see his storage thing, don't we? And it's full of different objects of all of his different exes, and they've all got little post-it notes with the girl's name and the date that he broke up with them. So you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, what's going on here? And then he goes outside his little storage room and the lights all go off, and then there's a really nice moment when he turns around and you see the blue light of a Dalek's eye stalk and the room's all red. And the Dalek's there. Sarah's also confronted by one, isn't she, separately?
I really like how that was done, because when she sees her first Dalek, the Dalek appears in the lift.
Yeah.
And she says, all done, Nick. And when she looks up, the Dalek says, I am not Nick.
You all done, Nick?
I am not Nick. This area is now under Dalek control.
What's going on?
Exterminate!
Dalek! You'll answer for that.
Daleks answer to no one.
Yeah.
Like, to hear a Dalek say that, the Daleks have some great lines that are like things that you would never expect to hear a Dalek say.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they both get exterminated. Yeah, and then the Doctor, Yaz, and Dan, they come out of the TARDIS, and the TARDIS like cracks.
Yeah.
And that effect is done so well.
And the cloister bell's going off too.
Yeah, it's really epic. And there's like smoke coming off of it, and these cracks are like pulsating red. And it was this like TARDIS prop that they cut up and destroyed for this scene. And they sold that recently, only the end of last year,
right,
for a king's ransom. And I think it sold for like $4,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
So anyway, it would have been cool to have, but so yeah, basically the TARDIS is reacting to the temporal disturbance, and it's like tearing it apart, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. There's like an issue, and the TARDIS is the thing that's creating the time loop, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, basically, because she thinks it's the Daleks, and the Daleks are like, no, it's you, hon.
Yeah. And then the Doctor and co meet their first Dalek. And there's a really lovely shot of them framed, and it's like a poster. And the Daleks are very sassy in this episode.
And then the new gun gets revealed, and then they are all shot dead.
Daleks, learn. Exterminate.
Not like this.
Yeah. And that's the pre-title sequence, isn't it?
Yeah. And she says, before she's killed, she says, not like this. And it's like, oh my God, like, they get shot. And it's like, wow. I really love it when you forget the pre-title sequence hasn't happened. And then they get shot. And it's like, and the title sequence kicks in. And that's a good feeling, that. It's like the Series 5 finale when River Song's like sat in that tent with the Romans dressed as Cleopatra.
That's funny.
And then they get out of Van Gogh's painting, and then the titles hit, and it's like, oh my God, this show's nuts.
We love a good pre-title sequence.
We do, yeah.
Yeah, so then the loop resets. Everyone's back in their places. The Doctor and co come out the TARDIS. Sarah's back in the lobby downstairs at reception, and Nick's back in his storage room. I think it's just really clever how all the characters move around and find each other, and when the loop resets, they come up with different plans and stuff.
It takes them a while to realise that they're looping, and even to really start to sort of put a plan together and to like arrange to meet up with each other. It takes them a few tries, doesn't it? Each time they sort of respawn, they try to find ways of avoiding what happened last time, and they make a plan, don't they? And Sarah decides to, rather than follow the Doctor's plan, because she's very skeptical about the Doctor, she just goes to try and save Nick.
Yeah, they get exterminated like a couple of times.
Yeah.
It takes them a while to work it out. So it starts off with 1 or 2 Daleks, and then by a couple of loops in, there are 3 Daleks. And one of the loops, the Doctor and co step out the TARDIS, and they're like immediately confronted by a Dalek. And again, they've got some great lines, like Dan says, "So we're dead," second time round, and the Dalek's like, "The inferior human is correct." I don't know why the Dalek felt the need to just drag Dan, like to call him inferior like that, rude. But anyway, Dan's like, "Who are you calling inferior?" And the Dalek's like, "You, assessment has been made." That Dalek woke up that morning and chose violence.
Yeah. I think there's 2 Daleks until the scene when Nick realizes that he can duck when they shoot each other, and then the Doctor runs in to visit to see him, and she's like, "How did that happen? Well done." And he's like, "Oh, I ducked." And then that's when they realize that they're going to need a 3rd Dalek, and then the next time they appear, the 3rd one appears.
Yeah, it's all very clever. It's very well put together. They spend a lot of time trying to outwit the Daleks and trying to sort of assess where they are. At one point, they get stuck in Nick's storage facility.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in there that they can use to defend themselves. There's like that quite chilling scene where, well, first of all, they ask Nick about what all these items are, and they're from his ex-girlfriend, and there's that great Yaz line.
They're alive still out there?
Of course. Oh, God. Of course. Yeah, no, not all of them were serious. Some were just like a few days.
Man, you are weird. What?
Bit harsh.
Bit hard. He comes here every New Year's Eve, which is weird enough in itself, and what to do all of this, that is weird.
He's standing right there.
It's fine.
No, it's not fine. It's not fine. You're the reason that I'm here. You're the reason that I'm trapped in a time loop with a robot.
Daleks.
Oh my, with stupidly named robots with people I don't even know. Also, what? Why? So you can catalogue your monopoly?
Sarah sort of snaps at Nick and says, "It's your fault that we're here." And he then exits the storage container and like sacrifices himself. He tries to reason with the Dalek, but you can't reason with the Dalek. But like some of the scenes where they all realize they've got to die again and restart the loop are quite chilling. It's not every day you see you see the Doctor and their companions exterminated like so blatantly, and it's not a bait and switch or anything like that.
The thing is, it's when they're starting to sort of realize what's going on with the situation, that's when when the Doctor also realizes that they actually do need to sort it out. They can't just keep going around in circles, because with every time they die, they've got one less minute to try and fix this problem before it turns to midnight.
Mm-hmm.
So she's basically like, we need to solve this and get out the building before midnight. And that's when they start to formulate a plan, isn't it? To try and use the phone signal from Sarah's phone going off when her mum tries to call her to distract the Daleks long enough to sort of bomb them with like a massive batch of illegal fireworks that are being stored in the basement, aren't they?
And they have to spend sort of 1 or 2 more loops just to like throw the Daleks off the scent.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels really like precarious.
Yeah.
And even though I'd seen the episode before a couple of times, when you watch it, it does sell you like how tense the situation is.
Yeah.
Even when you know it's going to be okay. Like,
well, I was thinking, how do they actually solve this again? Because it feels like they take it down to the wire, don't they? And initially they've got 2 goes, I think. They've got an extra go. And when they start what they think will be the last time, it goes wrong immediately, and they have to do it again. And it's like, okay, well, crap, it really needs to go right this time, or else they're not going to be able to get out.
And Nick gets exterminated like 4 or 5 minutes to midnight. And when the loop restarts, there's like a really like, there's like a revelation that if they don't save Nick on that loop, he doesn't make it to the next loop.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really clever as well. Like that was really well done.
I've got some stuff I need stored, and I just wanted to see what was available.
Daleks do not store stuff.
But you're in the wrong job then, aren't you? What are you, some kind of automated staff? How does this work?
Desist, do not approach.
I get a friendlier voice though. This one's a little bit grating. What kind of a welcome is that? Hey?
I'll be calling you to your manager.
Daleks do not have managers.
Yeah, well, maybe that's part of your problem.
Artron energy particles detected. You are a friend of the Doctor. Analysis concludes this is a delaying tactic.
Took you long enough.
Exterminate!
Dan really like pushes it, doesn't he? He goes to town on it and runs around it and basically just like trolls it and pokes fun at it. I think it wouldn't have worked with some of her other companions because it's Dan, it's funny. I think Dan's a really interesting companion because on paper he's just similar to Graham. I don't know, something about him just works. Something about Dan just works for me so much better than Graham. And he is just funnier to me. And yeah, like it's a really fun scene to watch, to be fair. He's like, you might want to change your voice. It's a bit nasty.
Yeah. It's the accent as well. John Bishop is really funny, to be fair.
Yeah.
And I feel bad because I feel like he might get a little bit forgotten in the eras because he's sort of in betweeny, and he was sort of part of this one limited series, and he's like a one-off companion, and it was a short series of sort of specials and stuff. And I do think he, like when you say the Jodie era companions, a lot of people would say Yaz, Graham and Ryan.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I personally feel like Yaz and Dan were the golden team. Like I find them so much more engaging.
I do forget. It's not that I forget about Dan, but it feels like he's not as ingrained in that era of the show. But I really personally am more fond of him than I am with the other companions. A bit like Bill.
Yeah.
Like I think Bill's a bit squashed between. Well, actually, it's the Liz Shaw effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
They get a couple of seasons or one set of stories that are really strong, and then because they're sort of sandwiched between 2 much longer eras, they get forgotten about.
Definitely.
Which is a bit of a shame, really. And I really like it as well when it realizes that Dan is just trying to play for time and the Dalek exterminates him, but it says exterminate in the most pissed off way. It's like it's really angry that he's like wasted his time.
Yeah.
It's just really good, really funny. They're used in really funny ways in this story, but also when they want to make them creepy, they can make them creepy as well.
It's a really fine balance because you could quite easily just take the piss out of the Daleks and
it's very easy too.
The fear factor.
Yeah.
But in this episode, they get played for laughs, but like you say, the next scene they're played in a really creepy way, and we'll get to that. I also wrote here as well that the exterminate effects is slightly different from what we've seen before, where it looks really good, but also they're exterminated in slow motion. I don't know if that's to do with like the time loop element, but it's really cool how it lingers, like the shot lingers of them being exterminated as skeletons.
I think every time they're shot, the camera slows down, the effect slows down.
Yeah. So there's this really delicate moment with Nick and Sarah where Nick admits his feelings for Sarah. Sarah admits that she wasn't trying to save him and it was all a bit of an accident earlier. She's just honest with him, which he appreciates. And it's a really tender moment where they're hiding behind some boxes in the basement of this building and lurking in the dark. A scene that I forgot about is a Dalek with its eye light off.
Yeah.
Listening and watching them.
Yeah, it's really clever.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
And the blue light turns on.
It's one of those things. It's like they don't. It's like I've said this to you loads, Sean, about how I think in some of Moffat's episodes, there's a tendency to like make the Daleks like announce everything that they're doing, and that does carry through to Chibnall's era. And to be fair, Russell's era does it as well. To be fair, all the New Who Dalek stories do it a lot, where they announce like everything that they're doing, like if they're scanning someone or if they're assessing something or whatever. But in Classic Who, sometimes they do stuff in the 60s where the Daleks would appear, or they do visual cues with them. So they'd have them stand there waiting and watching people or whatever, or not responding to people, just being static. And they don't do that ever in New Who, but they do it in this story a couple of times where the Daleks appear silently, and then when they're spotted, they start to act and they like attack or whatever, or they speak. And that's really nice because you never get that. So when it does happen in this, it's like, oh my God, like they're actually creeping around them. Because the Daleks have clearly found Sarah and Nick in this basement, rather than running there, guns blazing, screaming, exterminate like they would do. They don't. They're in there, and you don't spot them until Sarah is looking at Nick, and she has like a tear running down her face. And you think, oh my God, she's been emotional about this conversation. And then she's like, Nick, behind you. And then that's when we see the camera turns around and then it's there waiting. It's really well done.
There
really
are parts of this story that really feel like a horror film. Like it feels like they're really leaning into the horror genre with Daleks, which they don't usually do. Like Daleks are always played as like really evil.
Yeah, to be fair, I agree. There's a couple of bits when they start to do that. I wish they'd pushed it further. There's the bit when I think it's the penultimate time she's killed. Sarah tries to run into the lift, but the Dalek shoots the power conduit thing on the wall. So the whole warehouse goes into darkness. And none of them expect that. And then for those next couple of scenes, just the characters like fumbling about in the dark. And that's when it's really creepy.
Yeah.
And they don't really push it any further than that, but they could have done. But yeah, you can see them creeping into the idea of Daleks like skulking about in the dark, which is great. They touch upon it, but it doesn't get pushed any further than that, unfortunately, for me.
Yeah.
But it is good. Really well done.
So this episode is the first to properly lean into the possibility of romance between the Doctor and Yaz.
Yeah.
And it feels like it comes out of nowhere, I remember thinking at the time. But because I can't think of any other.
No, it's very much in this one. And then you've got a bit of it in the Sea Devil one, obviously. That's then the end, isn't it, more or less? So it's like you get a taster of it. But I think it's more about the subtleties in Mandip Gill's performance. Is more like the subtleties in that, like the way she looks at the Doctor. And she's been doing that for a while. But I think, again, like due to the scripting of it, it's really not made a big deal out of at all. And this is the first one where it's really like, oh my God, Yaz actually really likes the Doctor. There's a bit of an influx, to be fair, but not very much of it. You know, like when Yaz and Dan get separated from the Doctor and they go on that boat and stuff.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
There's a bit of it in there. That's when it starts. But prior to that season, there's not really any of it. And it's a shame they weren't just a bit more gutsy to push it a bit further before the end of the era, but they didn't. And that is what it is. But it's nice to see Dan talking about it with Yaz. And then in the next scene, Dan is like to the Doctor, why do you pretend you can't see her? Why do you pretend you don't see it? And you're pretending you're not feeling anything. and everyone knows you are. And it's like he really sort of goes for her, and she just sort of like brushes it off. But like, I'm so glad that they introduced a character who does that, because I just feel like Graham and Ryan probably wouldn't have done that, you know?
Dan feels quite comfortable calling the Doctor out. Yeah.
He sort of pushes them together a bit more, and that continues in the Sea Devil one as well, from what I remember, a little bit.
I really like the way it's sprinkled in this episode as well. Like when Nick gets killed after Sarah and Nick have that tender moment, and then they all end up getting exterminated. And they come back in the next loop, and Nick is separated, and Sarah says, I'm going to go and save Nick. And the Doctor says, no, you have to stay here. And Sarah says, I'm not going to wait for him to get killed. I don't care if he's a weirdo. And he is a weirdo, but he's decent. He's got a good heart. My friend Lauren actually says that good-hearted weirdos are actually the keepers.
Yeah.
And Yaz then looks at the Doctor, and the Doctor looks to her, oblivious.
Yeah.
And the Doctor says to Yaz, what? And Yaz is like, no, nothing. And then Dan gives Yaz a knowing look. And I just think it's done really well. Like it's not ham-fisted. Like I just think, it's great.
Yeah.
Really well done.
Yeah.
But this is when Nick actually saves himself from 2 Daleks where he ducks and the Daleks blow each other up. So that was a really cool scene, really clever.
I'm not dead. I can make it to midnight. I can make it out. Oh, you think you can kill Rasta?
Nick, what happened here?
It was a lot of strategic analysis, weapons assessment, and battle-ready thinking.
Did you duck?
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know how easily the Daleks would actually be duped into doing that, but it's really cool, so who cares?
It's just funny because they've been doing that since the 60s, where people who are between 2 of them duck at the last minute and the Daleks shoot each other.
Yeah, I love that.
Funny.
Literally,
funny.
like 15 minutes after a Dalek told the Doctor, Daleks learn. It's quite an emotional episode, isn't it? Like, Yaz has a bit of a breakdown as well to Jan. Yaz has a bit of a breakdown to Dan and about her feelings for the Doctor and things like that. Dan says, like, he knew because he could see the way that Yaz was looking at the Doctor's hologram during Flux when the Doctor was absent.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where it sort of
because they're
originates
sat on the boat, and isn't she like watching it or something?
Yeah, on repeat.
So it's that kind of thing. And I think, to be fair to Ryan and Graham, I think even just thinking about the script, those characters weren't written with that kind of thing in mind. And I think they were trying to consciously do that by Flux, like really give them character moments. And I think Yaz and Dan get a lot of time to breathe once Ryan and Graham have gone. They're all the better for it. And I think that's a great example of that happening in Flux. And then obviously, and this is continued. And also towards the end with the fireworks and stuff, there's that gorgeous non-scripted acting going on where they're like looking at each other, and the way that they all 3 of the main cast just look at each other, but the way they do it tells you everything you need to know. And that's such a far cry from like series 11 when they're all just standing in a line, not doing anything.
Yeah, and it was more big finish.
They really learn how to maximize their interactions they get.
Definitely.
Well, in some stories, this is one of them,
And what was quite interesting as well about this heart-to-heart that Yaz has with Dan is that she says that she hasn't ever told anyone, not even herself, that she might be queer. Like, that's
I forgot about that bit.
Interpretation, yeah. Really well done. Yeah, really well done.
It is great because obviously, like, we know about her family, we know about her religion and stuff, and that all adds to the sense of like conflict that she might be feeling. And it's really interesting, and they weren't really ballsy enough to quite push it, were they, anymore? But, I guess you could say that by this point, the era was like dialing back and stuff, and there's not really time to do it in this story anyway. But like, it was just nice to see her get more development for me anyway. And then as well, like, yeah, I mean, and I'm sure you know as well, Sean, but like when you're not out and you're not telling people actively, coming to terms with it for yourself, that's a massive part of makes it so difficult, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So you can only imagine what Yaz must be going through at the same time.
Yeah.
Let alone having a crush on someone that doesn't even, react.
No, exactly. This is the scene as well. It's after this tender moment, probably the most tender moment in the episode, where the Dalek spent the whole time listening, and that's when the eye light comes on, and the Dalek pipes up and says, "The Doctor cannot save you. The Doctor will never save you." I just thought, oh my God, what an entrance for a Dalek. And how funny that it was listening the whole time.
Dan? Don't move.
There's one behind you, Yaz.
The Doctor cannot save you. The Doctor will never save you.
And only when they noticed it watching, it comes to life. It's just so good. I've noted as well, did you notice one of the Daleks has a deeper voice than the rest of them?
Yeah.
That felt very sort of Cult of Skaro.
Yeah, one of them has got a deeper voice. Yeah, definitely. I noticed that.
Sarah, on one of, if not the last loop, she gets into the lift and she speaks to her mum, and the whole the gravity of the whole situation sort of finally hits home for Sarah, and she decides to take the opportunity to have a tender moment for her mum, because she's not sure if she'll get out at that point. Yeah. And she says she rang her mum to say that she misses her and that she loves her, and she's not sure if she says that enough. And her mum's like, "Are you drunk?" She's like, "No, I'm not drunk, Mammy." She said, "Oh God, are you ill?" It's so funny.
That bit's really funny, to be fair. It's nice that those bits punctuate, don't they? The darker elements of it are made more light by those kind of jokes.
Yeah, it's so well balanced. You do sort of wonder where this was in a lot of the era, because it's fair to say not all of it was as tight as this, but anyway. And then meanwhile, Nick is in his storage unit, and the Dalek approaches him and it tries to exterminate him, but he ducks and it exterminates the shelf that has all of his ex-girlfriend's belongings on.
Yeah.
And he thanks the Dalek for the therapy. I thought that was clever as well.
Yeah, no, I like that bit, to be fair. What better way would there be to get over someone?
Yeah, that storage container full of beef and beans is so random.
Yeah, I know.
And the sort of plot thread about this dodgy uncle that Sarah has is really funny too.
Yeah, he's the guy that owns all the fireworks, isn't he?
Yeah, and lives there apparently sometimes.
Yeah, but I like the imagery of that though.
Same.
It's so funny because I think that was released as a promo image, wasn't it? Of them sat with the beans.
Yeah.
I always really like that because it's they're in this flat, aren't they? Like an apartment, watching the hootenanny with these beans, and they're all just sat waiting for the Daleks to catch up with what's going on. And yeah, it's just one of those little moments where it feels like, oh, this is a really good team. I wish they had more moments like this, do you know?
Yeah.
Because they're doing the most mundane thing, but it's fun to watch.
They trick the Daleks because they've rigged up all these explosives and fireworks in the basement in the dark. They all manage to leg it, but they leave behind Sarah's phone on top of this pile of explosives.
Yeah.
And and Sarah's mum, Mary, rings and starts talking, and the Daleks think that there's a person and just fires without questioning. It's
quite funny how the last thing the Dalek sees is Mrs. Doyle's face going hello.
That's great. Mrs. Doyle defeats the Dalek.
She saved the world. Yeah.
Sarah? Human presence confirmed.
And the effects are so good.
It's a nice shot, isn't it? Of the building collapsing.
Some of the best Doctor Who's ever had. And the fireworks was such a clever idea as well. And after defeating the Daleks, they all get a quiet moment where they stand with each other and watch the fireworks go off. And we get the most random cameo ever that I had to Google afterwards.
Oh, God. Yeah, I know.
I'm not even sure if this is correct, but I think there's a man that walks by and stops to look at the fireworks and take a picture or something. I think he's the trophy from Jodie's first episode, the guy that Tim Shaw is hunting. We should watch The Woman Who Fell to Earth again. I think I've seen it twice.
I'm quite keen to watch the era again, to be fair, like bits of it, definitely.
Yeah, it'd be good to rewatch it without the weight of like it being the current era, but as like a retrospective. I definitely like to give it another shot. The next shot is them going back into the TARDIS after saying their goodbyes, and they went through the effort of creating this shot where it's like the TARDIS in a crater of the building, unscathed, with Dalek bits scattered about.
Yeah.
That's really well done as well.
Yeah, and I remember everyone was saying, like, could this be like a visual and thematic like representation of like the end of the Gold Daleks? Because it's like showing them in bits and pieces. They've appeared once since this, haven't they?
Power. Yeah.
But again, that was kind of like like you said, that wasn't a main Dalek story. They were cameoing in it more or less. They probably only get like 15 minutes of screen time.
Yeah.
So it's like that's not really a Dalek story. I see that as more of a master story with the enemies thrown in.
Yeah, it's always. I think there's a separate category for like is standalone, and then there's like they are part of a plot with other baddies as well. That doesn't quite count the same as this, I don't think.
It's more about the master, really. So I think for a lot of people, this is still the last major Dalek appearance on Doctor Who, and obviously we don't know yet. This is the first time since the Moffat era, really, when people have been a bit unsure as to what the Daleks are going to look like when they next appear. So this might be the very last Gold Dalek, proper full Gold Dalek story, you know? Because they were never going to debut a redesign in that master story, were they?
No, I hope not. 'Cause I love the Goldies. I do love the Goldies.
I think it would be nice to get a bit of a change now, I have to say, because they look good. They look great in this story, and obviously the gold ones had a lot of different like repaints and variants over the years post the paradigm. And this is probably the best they've looked for quite a long time. So I'd like this to be a good like final swan song for them.
We get Sarah and Nick send off. They decide to go travel the world together, which is really nice. Mary, still on the phone. Bless her. The actress, she could film all her bits on her iPhone.
Yeah, no, you never see her in the flesh.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
So that's very nice for her.
Yeah.
And it's a nice open-ended, Russell, open-ended ending for Sarah and Nick. Yeah. They leave in the taxi, they could come right back in that taxi.
We might well see them again.
I'd love it. Yeah. I think she would be great as a full-time companion. Both of them would be. But anyway, do you miss the plunger, the Dalek plunger?
For one story, I think it's fine. I mean, I get a bit confused because in Chibnall's episodes, these two last Dalek ones he did, the trilogy, there's Executioner Daleks, aren't there? And there's Death Squad Daleks. And I don't know which one it is in this story and which one it is in the other story, but they're basically just normal Daleks, aren't they?
One's got like a claw from Amazon.
Yeah, which is these ones. I don't mind it. I think it should have been designed rather than bought, because obviously with the Assault Dalek in Series 1, they bothered to design a claw for that. So I don't know why they didn't design one for this, but it's fine. I mean, it doesn't actually serve any purpose, does it? Because I think in the shots where the claw moves, they cut those.
And what do you think of the machine gun?
Yeah, it's fun.
They do miss a lot, though.
Plot-wise, it's a funny story to introduce it in because A, they do miss them loads, and B, the gun type is redundant, isn't it, given the story? So I almost wonder if lasers just would have made more sense. I think if they wanted to make them look unique, they shouldn't have bothered with the gun. They should have just painted them differently. In a lot of the promos, they look like they're a really dark bronze anyway.
Yeah.
Like they look very like dark bronze and like bright gold, which is like a more contrasted version of the normal gold Daleks. That would have been quite cool. But they're not either. They're just normal gold Daleks, but still. Yeah, it's a nice tweak. I don't hate it like some people do. I just think it's an interesting change given the nature of the story.
Out of 10?
I would give this story an 8. Very strong. Probably 8.5.
I think I'm giving it a 9.5. Definitely my favourite Jodie episode.
Yeah, it's probably one of my favourite Jodie episodes, to be fair, as well.
And I think it's a really strong episode of Doctor Who. And like you said earlier, it's for me and for you by the sounds of it, a comfort episode.
Yeah, it doesn't drop many points for anything really for me.
No.
Even the stuff like that people whinge about, like the Dalek guns and the claws and whatever, I don't even care about that.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the episode. It's nice to have something vaguely different to look at, but yeah, I think it's really good. I'd probably say 8.5, but also 9 on a good day.
Yeah.
It's really strong. It is. I think it probably is my favourite Jodie episode.
Perfect. All right then. Well, that brings us to the end of our chat about Eve of the Daleks.
Yeah.
What are you drawing for this week's artwork? Obviously, people listening will already see it.
A Cyberman. No, Daleks, obviously.
Excuse me, lady.
Excuse me, lady. Yeah, I'm drawing Daleks. Probably 3 of them.
Did you see the artwork that they released? The poster for Eve of the Daleks. I really like the poster with the clock.
Yeah, I'll probably try and superimpose that on the image.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Listening to our Dalek ramble.
Stay tuned for our next episode.
Yes, perfect. Until then.
Bye.